Okay, so this is your quick review on how do we find slope from tables and graphs. So as a reminder, we talk about slope, and slope is defined as the steepness of a line, but when we're looking at how do we find it, we use the formula delta y over delta x. And that formula means I want to know how are the y's changing over the change in x values. So are we increasing in the y's? Are we decreasing in the y's? Same thing for the x's, and by how much? So let's take this example first. So knowing that I'm looking for the slope, and we know that you're going to use the formula delta y over delta x. So the first thing I want to know is, well, what is the change in y here? So if I look at, I want to look at the first one of negative 2 to positive 2, to negative 10. Okay, well, I know I'm going down, but I need to figure out by how much, and in this case, the difference is going to be negative 12. From negative 10 to negative 16, that's a bigger negative, so again, a decrease, but this time of 6. So let's go over here now. I'm going to look at my delta x, or my change in x. So negative 2 to positive 2, that's an increase because it's going up, so I'm adding 4. 2 to 4, plus 2. So when we're looking at this, you notice that they're not the same each time going down, right? And that's okay. And so what we do need to make sure we look at, though, is we need to make sure we compare values that are in the same location, so the same ratio. So for example, I want to compare negative 12 with the same location, a positive 4, and then negative 6 with positive 2. So let's take a look at the first one. So if I plug in negative 12 for my change in y, and I divide that by a positive 4, that should come out to negative 3. Another quick tip on how do we know this is negative? By looking at, well, I know that the change here is down. I know the change here is up. Those are opposite. So therefore, right away, I can make the assumption that my slope is going to be negative because they're moving in opposite directions. But let's double check the other one just to make sure. So again, my formula here is the delta y over delta x, change in y over change in x. So let's take a look. Here I have negative 6 divided by positive 2, and that as well comes out to negative 3. So in this case, my slope would be negative 3. Okay, so let's go take a look at a graph. So in a graph, we're going to use very similar strategies in the fact that we want to create tables and then find delta y over delta x. So my slope formula is still going to be change in y over the change in x. That doesn't change. So what changes is our presentation of the data, right? We get a graph. And on this graph, I'm looking for those perfect points to fill in the table. So a point like right there, and a point like right there, there. All these are perfect points. So the first point I see is 0, 0. I see a 1 and a 60. 2 and 120. And then we could add up to any other points. Let's jump to 5. 5 and 300. Alright, so again, we're going to apply our formula here. And I'm going to look at, okay, how do I go from 0 to 60? I'm adding 60, 60 to 120, adding 60, 120 to 180, plus, or 300, excuse me, plus 180. Looking at the change in x here, plus 1, plus 1, plus 3. So again, remember, when we're comparing and we're actually starting to set this up, we want to compare numbers that are in the similar locations. And what I mean by that is, well, 60 is with 1 here, this 60 is with 1 here, and this 180 is with this change of 3 here. Another thing, we're looking at graphs, that a little shortcut to help you out. I know this is a positive slope because it's moving in an upward direction as I read the graph this direction. So then I know my slope is going to be a positive something. So let's go figure that out. So let's take our first two numbers, our first two changes. So if I'm looking at the slope here of change in y over change in x, well, then I have 60 for my change in y. I have plus 1 for my change in x. And 60 divided by 1 is positive 60. That's going to be the same for this relationship. Let's double check the last one though. So if I have delta y over delta x, I have a positive 180 divided by positive 3. That's going to come out to a positive 60 as well. So in this case, my rate of change is positive 60. Now we can actually talk about this rate of change a little bit, because since this is what we call a real world graph, we know that could actually happen. And so when we have one quadrant graphs like this, the real world graph actually has a meaning when it has a slope. And in this case, what the slope is telling me that for every hour I increase by 60 miles, or we can say 60 miles per hour. So that is my slope in this case. Okay, so what you're going to do now is you're going to go move on to your next assignment in Schoology, and that assignment is going to actually be what we call a scavenger hunt. There are directions on how to do that, and if you need any help with the directions or you get stuck on any of the problems, please contact your teacher and let us know. Okay, hope you have a good day, and good luck.